Okay, a very good afternoon to everybody who's here today. Welcome to another webinar session conducted by Maya. A small brief about what Maya is doing. Maya is an AI platform for cosmetic virtual prototyping. Maya can be used by cosmetic for product development process, mainly for formulators, R&D teams. And another user of Maya is people who want to showcase their cosmetic ingredients. So it could be a supplier, a distributor, a manufacturer who wants to showcase their ingredients, get the formulators, understand the potential of their ingredients for their formulations. So we have two kinds of customer. One is R&D teams or formulators who can use our platform, and the cosmetic ingredient providers. The main value proposition for the cosmetic formulators is to optimize your product development and also do frugal innovation virtually, where you can evaluate your formula, create a formula, refine your formula, understand which formula is good for physical trials, which has the highest probability of success. So this entire optimization will help you to launch your products faster. So currently we are in the product development phase. We'll be soon launching for a beta testing version. So if anybody who is here today is interested to be part of that beta version testing, you can contact us, and you can follow us on our LinkedIn page to get more information on what we do. You can request for a demo. So you can reach us in many forms. Follow our page, LinkedIn page. Soumya, you can put the LinkedIn page on the chat for them to follow. And we will get in touch with you and see whether we can work with you closely for the beta version testing. So without any further ado, let us come to the webinar of today. So I would like to introduce to you Mr. Manish Gangopadhyay. He's the founder of Innoventace R&D Services. Mr. Manish comes with significant years of experience, about 27 years in R&D. So he was former R&D person. Sorry about that. He was the former R&D director of Unilever. So he comes with a vast experience and has worked with many innovative projects as part of his tenure. He's ventured into his own venture, and we wish him all his success. And I would like to yield the floor to Mr. Manish today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sajid.
Share the PPT, Manish, before you can start.
You're projecting that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where is the present button, Soumya? I'm so...
You see the bottom.
Oh, yeah. Got it. Yeah. So I hope the screen is visible to everybody. Yeah. Yes, Manish, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot for the kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to be able to share some of our learnings here. Like Simi said, I represent a company called Innoventace.com. Innoventace R&D Services, our website is innoventace.com. Three of us started this from January, and our proposition is one-stop R&D solution for personal care, home care, and color cosmetics. If you can move to the next one. Yeah. So we have, between three of us, we are the partners. We have across categories over the years, across countries. Globally, we have done projects around 75 years of experience, 20 patents. Apart from, we have a lab in Mumbai, we have sensory panels and stuff like that. And apart from that, we take a ecosystem approach so that we can deliver a project from concept to the implementation, working with factories and anything in between. Yeah. We also have advisory, like a board, say industrialist, say a dermatologist, so that when we design the product, we ensure that it deliver to the brief, so that the consumers get a delightful experience with that. Next one. Yeah, very briefly, what we offer. One is end-to-end R&D solution to the brief. It may be an innovation. It may be, or anything for the anything to do with R&D actually, like consumer insighting, claims, validation, qual, quants, product improvement, savings, scale-up implementation, or even vendor management. We also work with raw material suppliers essentially to help them deliver a technical sales package, product understanding, and like what are the advantages say compared to the benchmark. And apart from that, we also provide R&D leadership to various companies. We do workshops for innovation roadmaps, a claims roadmap, and apart from that, of course, training is another pillar that we have actually. Yeah, if you can move to the next one. With that brief introduction, if you are more interested, just have a look at the website or you can connect with any of us. Today, the topic is really a product design framework for skin and hair. It's a vast area, and the 40-45 minutes that we have, I'll try to provide a framework so that, this ensures the right products are designed and delivered and implemented. So it's a design thinking, right? So every innovation starts from why we do an innovation. We try to address a problem that is there with the consumers. So identify the problem. Now there may be solutions, especially in personal care. Very rarely you will find an entirely new product. There are products addressing various acne and or say hair or any other skin product. But still, if you see the satisfaction of the consumers, they vary actually. Not, like many of the consumers will not be very happy with the product, entirely happy with the product that they're using. So there are always opportunity to deliver a superior product, a better product, addressing specific problems that some of the consumers may have. And once you have done the identification of the problem, it is really validating with the consumer, seeing whether there is a relevance. Yeah, like when we all love our own ideas and we may be passionate about that, we may see that potential is huge, but reality may or may not be the same. So always you validate with the consumers. Once the idea is validated, we move on to the prototyping. Again, with the prototyping, it's an interactive process. It's a multidisciplinary approach. And then we validate with the consumers. And once the testing, I'll be talking a bit more later about the testings and all, because there are various ways on which the testing can be done. Some may be right, some may not be appropriate as well. So knowing what is the test that needs to be done is extremely critical. And once all the KPI, the key performance indicators that are in place, we then take it to the launch. Yeah. This is a non-linear approach. There is no one size fit all kind of thing. But this broad framework, if we adhere to that and do the gatekeeping at various stages, then the chance of success is high. Like typically, like every day we see launch of so many different products in the market. How many of that are really successful? Like if you see success of innovations in personal care, home care kind of product, probably they're in the range of 20-30%. So, large amount of resources and energy are spent on things which doesn't really cut much in the market. So our job as R&D professionals or innovators is really to ensure whatever we are focusing, we have just sharp ideas and execution so that it has a fair chance to be successful in the market. Moving on to the next one. Simi, if you can move to the next chart.
I have moved.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It is then, like again, a product design framework. I'll not spend a lot of time because most of you will probably be aware of that, but I'll highlight some of the aspects which are important and which can make a difference. So again, like we said, it's a consumer validation. You have identified the idea. You have defined the problem. Like suppose we are launching a product for say anti-aging or acne, right? There are so many other products in the market which are doing the same job. Then why consumers will buy me, right? So really seeing if I'm doing an anti-acne, anti-aging or a shampoo product, what is the key differentiator? what I am offering, which is not there in the market. That's the part of the problem definition. And once we have identified the problem, we generate ideas on how to address that. Is it a technology? Is it the sensory which will drive that? What is the problem we are addressing? Or is it a sustainability approach, right? And then, of course, you develop several concepts. And those concepts are then iterated with the consumers to see where there are resonance with the consumer, because unless the concept that is resonating with consumer, chance of success is not that great. Concept also become, eventually when we do a communication or advertisement, it's done based on the concept. It is extremely critical. Then of course, like when we are doing, once we have the concept, it is the natural framework or the clean beauty framework or the various ethical consideration, because like you will see there are currently a lot of things we are talking about, say free from this and that, but there are, apart from that, there are some impurities that may come from some of the ingredients which may or may not be measured regularly, which consumers may or may not be understanding, but it is our responsibilities to deliver products that meet the safety, the ethical standards. Again, towards the end, we'll speak a bit more about that. Then testing we do, based on the testing, we may modify the prototype. Then we see whether it is scalable, whether we have the right hardware in the factory. Then it's the prototyping, large-scale testing in the consumers, then the factory trials, and then do the other validation for the claims or the stability, and then we launch. But the job doesn't get done once we have launched. Based on the launch, like probably 6 months down the line, we do a post-launch evaluation, see what is working well and what is not working well. Whatever is working well, those are the things we carry forward, and things what are not doing that great, then it's our job to again modify and upgrade, and that leads to a relaunch. Yeah. Moving on to the next one.
Moved, Manish.
Yeah. So, product design principles, again, broadly, we all will be familiar with this, but what I'll try to bring out really some of the nuances or the facets which sometimes may get overlooked or which are critical to be considered. Now, target audience, substrate type, habit, routines, it's very easy to say that we need to understand the consumers. But in a context of, say, hair or skin or any other personal care product, the consumer habits, the substrates, there is huge wide variations. Yeah. But the product that we do, we lot of times we speak about personalization and all, but really, are we delivering to the product to the right consumers, having the right substrate, right habits, and deliver to the end benefit that they're looking about? Just to highlight one element that, if we take, say, hair. Yeah, here in India, like there are oil users. Some are pre-oil users, some are post-oil users. Some basically use both pre and post-oil, and there are a very small percentage who doesn't use that. That is one aspect. Then the consumer, some of them may be using, running water shower. Somebody using a bucket wash. Somebody may be using shampoo 1 sachet. Somebody may be using 1.5 or 2 sachet, right? And then their end benefit or desire, maybe somebody has a freeze control, what they are looking for. Somebody may be desiring volume, or somebody just shape or sign. Depending on the occasion, somebody may be using a conditioner or serum, and that basically, all these parameters goes into the designing the product. Yeah, and I'll speak more on this a little later. Again, once we have understood the consumers and their habits, it is the product benefit and claims, because the claims are part of the proposition. Every personal care, if you see a TVC or a communication, there is an element of claim into that. So claims are basically, it's not an afterthought, which a lot of times probably happens. But once we know the claim, that's how you design the formulation, you build up the formulation. When we are designing the formulation, again, like the various facets are there, we'll speak a bit more on this little later. Regulation and compliances are extremely critical. Like in India, one point, like we have agonized a lot about that. There is a BIS specification, right? Our FDA and all, we are governed by the Indian regulations. There are regulations that every batch, certain parameter like heavy metal and all are required to be measured. Are we really doing that? How often are we doing that? Do we have a matrix which we are following and a method we are following to ensure that, like all the specifications that are there, we are adhering to that? Yeah. Coming to fragrances, sensories, extremely critical for driving consumer preferences. So, like to win in the marketplace, we have to deliver to the consumer aspiration or expectations. They play an extremely critical role. Safety, we live in an age where we talk of, like chemical free and fully natural and stuff like that. There are a lot of nuances, a lot of understanding. Like life, there is no life without chemicals. Yeah, we are all chemical being actually. Water is also chemical. So what exactly are we talking? Knowing that, and then really doing the right framework to drive the right communication is extremely critical. And I think we have that responsibility. And then again, again, it may look trivial. Yes, of course, it has to be storage stable. Our shelf lives are say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. But what are the testing that are required to be done to be confident that this product can survive the entire supply chain and till the end of the shelf life? And as we speak about, we'll be touching upon some of these in bit more details. Next one. Yeah, understanding the substrate, like we said, extremely critical. If you see the skin type, there are 6 skin type. In here, you can broadly say around 10. Like India, if we talk about the skin types and how the skin types are defined, Fitzpatrick scale, it really depends on your color of the eye, color of the skin, their response to the sunlight, and there are a few other parameters which are considered. Though the majority of, say, India will have certain skin type, certain hair type, but across India, practically all the skin types and most of the hair types will be there. Yeah, though the majority may be, say, in hair, straight hair probably will be, say, 70-80%, but not to say that there will not be large proportion of curly hair, 9-10% of curly hair. Similarly for skin color. So when we are defining and designing the products, it is extremely critical that we consider these aspects. And then there are, across the world, if you see, there are various combinations, like broadly typical Asian, African, and Caucasian hair, but there can be in combinations of that. And when we are designing the product, the requirement for the cleaning, requirement for the conditioning, if people are using as a regime, all these things become important. If you can praise, yeah. So what defines, like we are born with certain skin type, certain hair type, right? But then as we live our lives, your gender, our age, our habits, the weather condition that we live in, the kind of stress we experience, the kind of sun exposure we have, the kind of level of pollution, right? All these things has an impact on our skin conditions, our hair conditions, and there are plethora of scientific evidences behind each of these, that this kind of situation and condition can lead to, say, for skin, it can be dry skin, flaky skin, depending on the age and the like living standard, living style, physical activity and all. It can be acne prone, skin can be uneven tone, it can have age, and as we age, a wrinkle is a common phenomena. How do you do the management of that? Similarly for hair, all these conditions can lead to hair fall, damage, dullness, frizz, dandruff, even graying and all. And so when we define the product, it is not only important to understand the substrate, it is also important to understand the consumers and their lifestyle and some of the situations they're going through, which will define the kind of the problems they have and kind of end benefit they will want. One important point, I think, in personal care kind of product is that though, like consumers has different problems, so they want to address that. But the real joy of the product really comes from the transformation, the enhancement that we do while addressing the problems that are there actually. So this problem, unless the problems like acne, dandruff, they are severe basically, where there may be a need for a problem solution product, lot of the time the job of the personal care products are really the enhancement and transformation of the skin or the hair condition that are there. Moving on to the next one. External factors, like temperature, climate zone, the water hardness, they have a significant impact or the effect on both the hair type or the skin type. Now, when we launch our products, like we launch for India, right? I mean, like rarely probably we'll see a brand we are launching where there are two different products we are launching under the same brand, which is also not allowed in FDA. So, but if you see the conditions in across India, it varies widely, right? Say from say North India to South India, or say Western India to East India, the kind of climate changes in, like in Kashmir in winter, it may be 5 degree or lower. South, it may be 20, 18, 20 degree. Yeah. Similarly, the hardness, if you see metro cities hardness, I think it's a soft water mostly we get. But if you go to town B or town C's, there will be hard water and all. And we all know that, like say we have emulsifiers in cream formulations or the surfactant in the skincare, hair care product, and they have interactions with some of the hardness giving in chemicals, right? Calcium or magnesium. Some of them get precipitated. Even hair can get damaged if regularly we are taking a wash with a hard water conditions. Yeah. So all these parameters are important if we are designing products for specific consumers in various parts of India. And the challenge becomes basically, how do we make sure one particular product that we are delivering addresses most of the problems across India, because that's where the chance of success becomes high. Moving on to the next one. Again, if you see globally and even in India, actually, there are various products that are available. Consumer understanding across varies, and consumer habits also varies. To give an example, if you see, say, Japan, they use around 6 products as a regime when they're doing hair wash or the hair styling and others. In India, primarily, this is a shampoo market. And so shampoo has to also do the job of conditioner, yeah? Because the conditioner penetration is very, very low. Serum and mask, they are like very, very occasional usage, and there is a long way to go. So it becomes very critical that shampoo can do the job or some part of the job of the conditioner as well. And the challenge then becomes, how do you increase the usage of the other products and how do you design them? Similarly, for skincare, like if you say a consumer habit, you will be aware about AM/PM routines, right? So there are cleansers. The cleanser may be with moisturizers. Cleanser may be with anti-acne actives. Then there are toners. Then there are moisturizers. Moisturizers can be heavy, can be medium, can be low. Yeah. SPF. Lot of consumers. SPF is one product that's highly recommended to be used by everyone. Again, the usage is not that great. And then again, like in the night also, you have an anti-aging product or a deep moisturization. Depending on the life stages and the conditions in the skin, somebody may be looking for anti-acne benefits, somebody may be using a anti-aging product, depigmentation product. So various products are there, and these are used in combination. So, and there is no guarantee whatever we are recommending, that's what exactly been used. So in that given condition, then how do you design product that it delivers the bare minimum expectation of the need of the consumers? That is the table stake. Yeah. So all these aspects are needed to be considered when we are designing the product. Next one. And then, again, I will not spend much time on this, but there are various products, exfoliants or say scrubs, cleanser, moisturizer for skin. Another aspect I wanted to bring about that increasingly we see that, the benefit that are being delivered maybe, like same, say anti-aging product. But then, delivery mechanisms are different. Even the carriers may be different. Somebody may be wanting to deliver through a oil-based product. Somebody may be wanting to deliver through cleanser. And some other brand may be trying to address that through a cream or a emulsion kind of formulations. Yeah. And when we do a oil-based product and say a cleanser or a emulsion-based product, the challenges are different. The pHs may or may not be different. The viscosity specifications, their potential interactions, all these parameters become very, very important. Increasingly, or sometimes you can see there are multiple actives that are used. And in such situation, we need to recognize and need to be aware that there may be potential interactions, and we need to address that. To give you one example, that in the shampoo or cleansers, basically, if you see, if there are very high level of natural ingredients, they tend to, or there are evidences that they may interact with the way the silicone or the extent of silicone deposition in hair. So all these parameters and testing are very, very critical when we design the products. Moving on to the next one. Again, I'll not spend too much time, but I wanted to bring out some specific aspects of the product design. You will all know what are the different ingredients that goes in the skincare or hair care product. If I take a hair care example, like what you need to decide basically what are the surfactant we choose and why do we choose. Second is what are the combinations, because a lot of the times these surfactants work better in a combination, be it SLES, CAPB, CMEA, or torates and other ingredients. Polymers has multiple roles, both in skincare and hair care products. Polymers can, of course, it gives a viscosity, the thickness, which are very critical consumer preference driver. Also, some of the polymers or the active cationics that we use, they also have a significant or huge role in deposition of the actives like, say, silicone. Yeah. Now, coming to actives, I will talk little more about the skin active little later. Say here, I wanted to highlight one, like it is easy. Like if you say the shampoo formulations, like we use silicones. But if you see silicone chemistry, that's very, very deep kind of science and technology. If you see the types, the various types of silicones, there is a lot of choices of different grade of silicone, different molecular weight, different internal viscosities, like different chain length, those are available. And it becomes very, very critical to choose the type of silicone and the types of deposition aids so that they have the perfect synergy and they can work together to deliver the best performance. Otherwise, these are wash-off products, and a lot of times what we are really doing is, we are wasting the silicone that we are, it's not efficient. The silicone that are incorporated, it gets washed away. Similarly, for skin, the emulsion is the heart of the product because they also play multiple role apart from stabilizing the product. The sensories, the way the actives, whether I can put the active in the oil phase or water phase, it is defined by the silicone system or the emulsion system that I choose, and that's how it becomes very critical. Preservation, I wanted to highlight also one point. Sometimes, like the choice of preservative is very critical for the shelf life and the actually microstability of the product. It is critical to see the actives that we are using for preservation. They work at the pH of the product. Sometimes, if we are choosing, say, ascorbic acid or sorbic acid, and the pH is alkaline, they will not do any job. It's a waste. And sometimes we do see those kind of things are being done. So we need to be aware and careful about the choice of preservatives and the pH and other conditions which are required for them to perform for which they are designed actually. Yeah. Coming to the next one. Again, similarly, like more and more products, there are many products with different, like in the consumers, there is a huge potential for confusion because unless as a product development or a brand owner or innovators, we can define and guide the consumers for what benefit they are looking and what are the combinations that we can use. Different actives, of course, some of them work synergistically. So, and depending on what choice or the combination that we are using and how we are delivering that, they can deliver multiple benefit. One more point to highlight and to be careful about is to be aware that some of the actives, like consumers need to get used to that active. Their skin need to get used to certain kind of actives. Otherwise, it can lead to some of the reactions. And we see that, right? So, like if you say niacinamide or say vitamin C, there are products which may be 5% niacinamide, 10% niacinamide, or 20% niacinamide. Similarly, ascorbic acid, vitamin C may be 5, 10, 20, 25%. But if someone who has never used like this product and straight away goes to 20, 25% of active, there is a risk or there is a possibility that they may see some reaction. So the skin need to get, so how do you guide the consumer to the right way, whether they should start with 5% or 20, go straight to 20%? It really is decided by the way it is, the formulation is designed, the conditions that are maintained, and whether we expect consumers to see any reaction or not. And then it is our responsibility to really guide them accordingly. Yeah. Moving on to the next one. I just briefly wanted to talk about, like when we design product, how do you customize do the customization for the, say, hair. And I'll have a little more example from skin later. So first we look at what are the hair concern, right? And that's why when you will see, you know, like there are brands which are talking about straight hair, there are brands which are talking about anti-freeze, freeze control, damage control, like that. So these are the hair concerns, right? Freeze, the color protection, curl defining, damage repair, dryness, or anti-dandruff, or texturizing, right? Then hair type, yeah, all these attributes or all the concern maybe there for everyone having different hair type. But for different hair type, for the same concern, the solution may be slightly different depending on how you are designing the product. Then formulation formats, right? What is your formulation of choice? What is the formulation format that sells well in the market? Yeah. Then of course, you know, ingredient typically you can say what are the hero ingredients, consumer what they believe, what is trending for the on-trend innovation, or basically, you know, like for say, if you are following say Credo principles or Sephora guidelines, or you know, like no nasties and all, there is a bunch of ingredients which are there which you want to be free from. And then second, of course, like I said, you know, ingredient of choice. If your brand proposition are Ayurveda, what are the Ayurveda ingredients and what are the those ingredients which deliver the kind of benefit? Depending on that, we decide, choose the ingredients, and then we design to bring them all together. We make the formulation, then you do make the batches, then do the stability to ensure everything is all right. Yeah. Moving on to the next one, again, skin. Skin, very broadly, you know, like consumer, like I said, hair, skin, consumers really look for transformation, right? Just addressing the basic problem is not good enough. Yeah. So what are the broad areas where consumers are looking? They are looking for healthy skin barrier, because if you have healthy skin barrier, most of the problems are already addressed, taken care of. They also like healthy look. Yeah. The skin should be glowing. It should look supple. It should look elastic. It should look moisturized. Yeah. It should look healthy. Healthy looking, and then healthy feeling, and then finally also the emotional well-being. How do you smell, how do you feel, right? So from product design point of view, then you know there is a two approaches has to work in conjunction. One is long-term benefit, which may be moisturization, which can be the actives that you deliver, how long it takes to perform, and then the short-term benefit. Short-term in the context of skin, it is really the optical benefit, because if you have little wrinkle and those, we can use different, you know, like fillers and stuff like that, which will give you a very smooth, nice, supple feel. And then of course the sensories, you know, whether it is a heavy, oily, which a lot of times in the tropical countries consumers may not like. So whether it's a light gel, that kind of conditions, right? So once we have understood the consumer, what they want or what they need, then we need to decide on how do we make the emulsion, right? Again, depending on the emulsifiers that we are choosing, you can get different sensories or skin feel, right? So if it is soap based, they tend to be draggy, matte finish, right? And one point to highlight here, you know, like you will find a consumer or many consumers will like many of these or some of these for sure, actually. So none of these are bad per se. What we need to decide when we are designing the product is really the brand and the target consumer we are designing the product for, actually. Yeah. Then of course, water, silicone, dry, silky, velvety feel. Then there are, you know, oil in water or water in oil, then suspension gel. And you will also see some products which are hydroalcoholic. They are very light moisturizers kind of feel they give. Of course, the, you know, like apart from what consumers want, what the way we design, also the cost becomes quite important in our, because that's the price point where you want to sell. But it is important to understand this and decide what is the emulsifier system or the way we'll design and develop the product. Moving on to the next product, I'll spend a little bit of time here. You know, like safety, right? Safety, regulation, and compliance is extremely important. And there are various facets of that. So first is basically the raw material that we are choosing and the finished goods, FDA or BIS or different country regulations, there are specifications. We need to adhere to that. Again, when we say we need to adhere that, we also need to understand what are the certain impurities that are there and whether there are potential interactions, right? So see, SLES, right? SLES, we all know it can have, say, dioxin, right? If you take CMEA, it has impurities which are nitrosamine. If you are making a AOS-based product, it's a saltones, right? And then saltone, if somebody is using a bleach, then with saltone, chlorosaltone can get generated, which are basically toxins, right? So, and impurities, how often, the question I'm asking myself and asking each of us, how often we are measuring and how we are ensuring that, like the specification on these miners, specifically, even for heavy metals and all, it is critical that we measure these ingredients and ensure that it is complying, because consumers are none other than each of us, right? We are all consumers actually. These are the products which our families, our friends use, so it is important that we adhere to that. One more point, I just probably it's a bit controversial, but I'm using this opportunity to make a comment that like by being natural doesn't make a product safer than a so-called synthetic chemical, right? So if I take, say, salicylic acid extracted from, say, naturally sourced or from synthetic, in terms of performance, I haven't seen any evidence to say that there will be any different, both from safety, both from performance point of view, right? So natural, we all know, right? Natural products can be unsafe. Natural products can be very safe. Similarly, synthetic products can be unsafe, can be safe. So what it really depends on. Also, another point is the levels, right? The levels at which we use, like water, very short period of time, if we drink a lot of water, we can actually die, right? That doesn't mean water is unsafe. It is really how do we formulate, how do we bring all the ingredients together, and what kind of safety testing that we do to ensure the products are safe. That is what is most critical. And again, on safety, like normally we do patch test, and that's probably good enough when we are developing a well-established regular kind of product using regular ingredients, right? But then, sometimes for whitening or some specific benefit, if you are bringing out or combining 3-4 different ingredients, then it may also, like a patch test may or may not be good enough. What I'm trying to say is that we need to then consider whether a repeat insult patch test is required actually, because patch test is a single use for a certain period of time. We are saying there is a reaction or not. These consumers, to see the benefit, will be using the product, say, for 4 week, 8 week, 6 week, and continuously, right? So under repeated usage, what kind of safety concerns are there? Do we really understand that well? And then we need to decide as formulators or R&D personnel whether repeat insult patch tests are important, are required or not. And if we believe it is required, then along with our cross-functional teams and brand, we need to decide whether to do that or not. And then another point is regulation. Regulation has two parts. One is formulation. Regulation also covers kind of claims you can make, kind of licenses you can have, right? And it varies across countries. Actually, some of the products like sunscreen in US, they are actually OTC products, and many other products there are OTC. It also, depending on the claims that you make, product can become OTC in US, or it can be a cosmetic. Similarly, if in India, certain claims we can make, say in Ayurveda proprietary medicine, certain claims are allowed based on the ingredient or whether it's a classical recipe or not. But then, in a cosmetic, that claim will not be allowed. It will become a drug. So all these things are important and they keep changing. So it is important that we stay in close touch with this thing to ensure that we are always adhering to it. Yeah. Now coming to perfume texture selection, it sounds easy. Perfume is simple. Perfumery houses give the perfume. But we should remember, or I think we all know that, perfume is a significant, huge driver for consumer preferences. And there are variations across India as well. And one of the reasons you will see is that, some of the brand which does well in South may or may not be doing that great in North, and, vice versa. So the fragrances, again, some of the allergens, we don't talk a lot about the allergens and all. A good thing for us, what I have learned from my experience is that it is always advisable to follow the REACH, European REACH or US FDA regulation, because continuously, they research these ingredients and all, and they maintain risk, which are, they maintain list, which, certain things are banned. They also have a list, which is ingredient of concern, which means basically they are evaluating those ingredients for their safety, for their interaction with the human skin or the whatever the application is, accordingly they decide what is the risk, and then depending on the scientific evidence that are generated, they may or may not be banned. And this is done continuously, basically. If you see recently Lilial, right, which is a fragrance ingredient that got banned, and in Europe it is mandated that certain period of time it is given by which it has to be taken out. Now coming to again the sensories, again the appearance, the product, if it is a sunscreen product, what kind of tack is there? Consumers don't like a lot of tack, but then so that will define whether I am combining a mineral sunscreen and organic sunscreen. And if you are combining, whether even the inorganic sunscreen I am adding in the oil phase or silicone phase, or I am adding in the water phase, all these goes into defining the texture that I get. And the texture, more and more basically light, easy to glide, easy to apply, easy to spray kind of applications are required. But I think consumers also accept things other than that if the product really delivers. To give an example, a very simplistic example, like Ayurveda products. Ayurveda, if you take a oil or a product which is developed using the classical method, which goes through a cyclical heating and cooling, and over a long period of days, 4-5 days, they automatically come with darker color. It also comes with, say, probably an odor which is heat generated odor, and consumers accept that because they know this product will perform certain ways. But then it is important to remember that the product, the consumers can buy the product first time looking at advertisement, and the product doesn't deliver, they don't buy the product second time. So the product, whatever it is very critical that we ensure it delivers, because otherwise it will not sell that great. Yeah. So the sensories and all, depending on the proposition and others, we need to decide how do we do that and what do we deliver. Yeah. One last chart I wanted to speak about. This one is designing stable product. Shelf life we all talk about. See, shelf life is basically our product typically stays for about, say, 2 years or 3 years on the shelf. It may be 1 year also for certain products. Actually, the shelf life is a promise of the brand, right? So from regulation or safety point of view, if the product doesn't get contaminated, there is no growth of microbes and all, and product is safe to use, I can actually define any shelf life. Yeah. What happens apart from the micro stability and all, it is also fragrances deteriorate. Sometimes the the physical integrity of the product get compromised, because some of the sachet you will see, over a period of time, it tend to lose moisture. Then the product becomes too thick. It becomes a bit not that comfortable, not that great user experience. So shelf life is a brand choice apart from the safety aspect. Safety aspect you ensure by choosing the right preservative and the right conditions, right? And then what kind of safety testing we do. Now, safety testing actually depends on the type of format. So the safety requirement for us, a soap bar, yeah, the kind of condition that we'll be using, because the barrier properties and all are required, will be different for a bottle or a shampoo sachet that I'll be doing. So depending on the product format, we need to decide what are the conditions under which we are, testing this product. And that's based on the 12-week stability that we do. Sometimes in the Ayurveda proprietary medicine and all, they also require, as a regulation, 6-month testing. And these are all very critical to do actually. This ensures that, product is stable, will be delivering the performance it has promised. It is also important to know if there is an active, whether the active is stable during the entire shelf life, because otherwise the claim is not really valid during the entire shelf life. And when I'm talking about claims and all, I just wanted to touch upon also the various ways that product can be tested. And we should be careful about what we are doing. So in the testing, there are 2 ways we test. One is a technical test, right? It may be a instrumental method or whatever is required for that property. We do technical test. Then you do sensory or qualitative test, and then there are the quantitative test. Now, quantitative test can be branded, can be unbranded, it can be monadic, it can be sequential monadic. And for large brands and all, we need to do various tests. And now across the test, the results more often than not, probably will not be completely in sync. All ducks may not be falling in the line. So under that condition, basically under the situation, it is important to know your decision matrix and what are the decision guidelines. Because why do we do this test? This test we do to ensure that there is no risk to the brand. Whatever we are going to sell and whatever we are going to claim, they are valid and it delivers to the consumer. So, this is important to be aware that various tests, and if the results are somewhat different, what are the metrics for the decision? Yeah. So with that, I wanted to end this talk today, open for discussion, open for question or builds. Yeah. Simi?
Yeah. Thank you, Manish. It was a very end-to-end kind of presentation where we started off with the ideation to, launching the products, the final steps and stuff. So it was a very thorough end-to-end product development designing. The floor is open for questions. Let me see whether there are any questions. Yeah. How can we claim natural or 100% natural or biocert?
Right, it's simple, right? So for 100% natural, all the ingredients should be 100% natural. Yeah. So see now depending on the product. So if you are doing a say oil based on natural ingredients and all, chances are they will be 100% natural. But otherwise, if you take say any skincare products and all, you need to look at the natural index of different ingredients, because some of them may be 60%, some of them may be 40%, some of them may be 100%. And once you have looked at that, you aggregate and see what is your natural percentage. Depending on that, you can say up to 70% natural or that thing. So if you are saying 100% natural, it has to be 100% natural. So all the ingredients has to be natural. And how the natural index is calculated is really say these ingredients are say natural origin, right? Say palm oil you have taken, then how many step of chemical reaction you have done to arrive at the ingredient which you are using in the product, right? So more the number of chemical reaction you have done, more of the natural index will go down and down, and at some point it will probably go to zero, right? So depending on that, so if it is a simple ester and all, your natural index will be very high. So it really depends on how the ingredients that are going in the formulation and then the calculation that you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope that answer your question.
When we say oil-free products, does that exclude vegetable oils too?
Of course, see this. It is we say oil-free products. Oil, like you have to go by the chemical definition, right? So there are esters, lipids, right? So if you are saying oil-free, means it should not have any oil. Yeah.
Which list is to be followed for limits of ingredients? I didn't understand the question, but Manish, did you get it? Which list is to be followed for limits of ingredients?
Right. Yeah. So, like I think if I understood correctly, then it is the BIS. So BIS for various products, both for raw material and formulation, there are specification, there are ranges which are given. Yeah. Also for the ingredient impurities and all. So, if it is a dioxin, there is a limit which it should be below that. Or similarly, like it's a heavy metal, there are for every ingredient, there is a limit, and also for the FG. And of course, different ingredient, what are the level, what are the specification. Apart from that, I will also urge to, like follow the European REACH and US FDA. So EPA, there is a website where they specify the ingredients which they believe it is safe. It is more stringent actually, because like Europe, from my experience, I may be wrong as well, but then like European, they are very, very cautious and conservative. So whatever ingredient they are looking at today, rest of the world probably will look at those tomorrow. So it is good to know what are the ingredients of concern in Europe. Then you can accordingly plan for your brands. Yeah.
So if I can add to what Manish said, basically I'm a safety compliance person. I look at risk of chemicals. If you see the Indian regulations, and if you compare it with European regulations, cosmetic regulations, there is very minimal changes in terms of the concentration and thresholds. There are a few chemicals that is not covered under the Indian regulations, but that would be in the, I would say, 1% or less than 1%. So it's mostly the Indian regulations also follow the European model, but they have a stringent way of notification, which we do not have in India, which is like if they're creating a new ingredient for the first time and using it in the product. In the European countries, you need to notify to the ECHA and get the approval of the ECHA to get that ingredient into the product, which is not being followed in India. Purely because we don't involve into so much of R&D where we create new ingredients that can be used in the cosmetic industry. But I think that day is not far, because there has been discussion about chemical regulations, although it is not yet implemented. But once we get there, we will have similar to European regulations. But coming to the cosmetic aspect, it's mostly similar to the European, but there are a few chemicals which is missed out, but that fraction is very, very low.
Yeah, thanks. Simi, if you can also share our LinkedIn profile so that people can follow if they want, actually. I request you to follow our, because we also communicate and share some of the knowledge or learnings. If you can share as well, please.
Yeah, Soumya, if you're still there, can you share the LinkedIn profile of Product Dev as well as Inventas?
Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah, there are a few more questions here.
Yeah, I'll go through. Thank you.
One question. Go on.
Please explain lightweight creams or lotion.
Right. Yeah, these are basically, like the sensories actually. So you say light cream or lotion, which are basically, it doesn't give a heavy, oily kind of sensory or feel actually, because, like in cream, especially not so much on lotion, but creams and all, I can incorporate say 40% oil, I can do 20%, I can do 10%, right? So there are certain level of moisturization I want to deliver, right? Now, moisturization I can deliver through, say, oil, through glycerin or other polyols, like, like propanediol or butyl glycol, pentanyl glycol. So it is really, if it is a hot, humid, if it is very, sensitive, it's a heavy on oil, then it tend to be sticky, and especially consumer, if they're sweating, then, oil and water, what will happen on the skin, right? Microemulsion and stuff like that. So it is really light sensories, which in hot weather, from our experience, what consumer may like, then accordingly you design the product.
Okay. Can we say that 100% natural product or Ayurvedic, as you mentioned, is safe for any skin type or hair type?
This question I am not taking, because Shreya, you can talk to me in office. Yeah. Sorry, she's from my team. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So see, Ayurveda and all, if it is from classical medicines, from granthas and all, they have a long history of usage. So they are typically considered safe, mainly because they are because nothing goes into the grantha Ayurveda unless that has been tested, used over the long years, basically, right? So it is a history of use, basically, make those safer. Typically, my recommendation or advice or what I follow is really always, do the patch test and all to ensure and confirm that these are really, really safe. But typically, Ayurveda product, if it is classical recipe, which are, like comes from Grantha, because we all know, right, in the Ayurveda as a proposition, like, like in Grantha, you will seldom find a shampoo formulation, right? You will typically find oil-based products, right? So if it's a shampoo, which is a Ayurveda proprietary medicine, I'm using certain level of herb. But your question is right. If it is a 100% natural from Ayurveda Grantha, I'll presume they're safe, mainly by usage. Again, good to test. Yeah.
Kalpesh wants to know which process we have to follow for stability testing, European or Indian? Guideline, Colipa, or with BIS?
See, Yeah, my personally what I follow, because these are the decision you have to take along with your team as a company basically. What I follow, or I will typically, like the European conditions are different from Asian conditions, right? Or Indian condition. India, if you go to Kanpur, and personally I have gone to Khamgao or Kanpur, the temperature can go to 50, 48, 50, 52, right? Indian condition, when it is in transit in deep summer, temperature can go up to 60, 62. There are evidences or reports of that, right? So typically Europe will be say one of the condition they look at 37. In India, I'll be looking at 45, right? So BIS, basically, if you're in India, it is always advisable to follow BIS. If you are doing European, then of course follow the European, yeah? So I think basically my personal sense, guideline, if it works in BIS or Indian condition, the stability 45 degree and all, they will be safer from stability point of view in European condition. Yeah.
Can you please explain about mousse formulation?
Sorry.
Can you please explain about mousse formulation?
I don't understand the question
I
fully.
think it's the texture based formulation mousse,
Yeah.
MOUSSE.
Right. So mousse basically, there is a formulation you also use through a aeration technology. The way that you combine the product and the pump or the dispenser mechanism basically to bring out the sensories of the mousse actually. Yeah. And those formulations, of course, depending on the proposition you decide, they are the maybe lighter formulation. You use also aeration and technologies like that to get the specific formulations. Yeah.
Is it necessary to have a PIPT or an RIPT test to be carried out on herbal extracts or any active ingredients before adding into skin care products?
Right. I'm happy you are asking because, like as a product development personnel, these are the questions we should ask. See, the PIPT or patch test and all, we should do when the product is being applied or tested in consumers. So if you are looking at a herbal active or any active and you are not going to directly apply that to a consumer, right? Because you will formulate, you will do a different level. It may not be necessary actually, but when the formulation before you test in a qualitative test or you give to your colleagues and all, please test before doing that actually. So if the product has to come in touch with consumers, ask the question, is it safe and do I need to test? Yeah. And lot of times this ingredient, whatever levels and all are allowed in say BIS or the regulation is a European condition and all, over a long period of time they has been tested and used actually. The testing becomes much more required and rigor needs to be there when the active is very, very new. Yeah. So otherwise, if I'm using say many of the ingredients, right, niacinamide, retinol, kojic acid, glycolic acid, silicones, and they have been used before and all, then the risk get managed. But the FG needs to be tested for sure. Yeah, but this decision you need to take within your project context because you are, from this question, whatever I have understood, I am saying you may have some specific active in mind which I am not aware. So it's a contextual thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So any more questions? We can take one more and then we can close. And for people who want to connect with Mr. Manish, we have given the coordinates on the chat. Please take it. And also we request you to give us the feedback of today's session so that we can do more such kind of sessions with the topics that you are asking. So I'm just posting the feedback form again. There is one more question, I think.
Thank you, Congress. Very kind of you.
Okay, that's a thanks. Okay. Yeah, so please fill the feedback form so that we can understand. I noticed that there are a lot of questions related to the safety and how to design your product for safety aspects. So we'll try to cover that with our next webinar. Yeah, so I'm assuming there are no more questions. On that note, Manish, I will ask one question.
Sure.
So when you started with the designing aspect, you said first we have to identify what is the problem that we are solving, how to give that projection. How do you present your product out of the crowd? Let's say a sunscreen, how do you present your product, right? So do you understand at that stage itself what kind of test we need to do, what kind of emulsion or even the product formulation wise as well as the testing wise, will you be able to design at that stage when you figure out this is my standout for my product?
Yeah, so see, it is a multi. See, I'll not say everything you will know that, right? So when you are starting the project, that's why you start broad, right? You start broad, you look at various elements, and then as the project progresses, you narrow those down. It's like a funnel, yeah? So when I'm starting, then obviously you look at different pros and cons. Like I said, if it is an emulsion, what I will choose, the sensor is if it is a sunscreen, what are the problem consumer talk about, because sunscreens are there, right? So certain problems you identified, and then to address those problems, what you need to do in the product, right? That is how design. So you will seldom know probably more than 30-40% at the start when you are starting, and then you do the consumer work, your lab work and all, to really figure out a lot of these as you go along. Yeah. And that is why testing with the right consumer also become very, very important. We see some of the times, like if the product are tested, say within my team, right? Because they may or may not be the right consumer for whom you are designing the product. And then the feedback that you can get potentially wrong as well. So initially you will have your hypothesis, knowing on those, you define some hypothesis, and then you test and rule out and eventually decide one route to pursue. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think there's no more questions on the chat. So we'll close the session. Thank you so much, Manish, and thank you everyone for participating actively in the session. And we'll try to come with mostly the safety aspects in the next webinar next month. So please follow our LinkedIn page. Please follow Inventay's page also. If you want to connect with Manish, you have the coordinates here. And wish you all the success in whatever product development aspects that you are doing. Thank you very much.
And Simi, thank you from my side as well for giving the opportunity. It's been nice actually, and wish you all the very best as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Manish. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.